beyond here is one of my favorite details of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and you can't even see it with your own eyes. Yeah, you can't see it. Can you see it? I mean, you could probably see it because you're tethered into the mainframe, but us humans, us mere mortals, we can't see it. But you know what's up. This is one of my favorite design details, and you can't even really see it when you're inside of the land. Greetings, fellow citizens of Disneyland. Brickey here today with another designer deep dive, sharing with you one of my favorite forced perspective tricks in all of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Join me for another designer deep dive where I'm going to teach you a little bit more about forced perspectives that Disney Imagineering uses and how there's a masterful one that maybe you've ever noticed inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I saw you wave. So I've shared with you in my keyhole video how I believe that this is the most masterful look into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. But today I want to share with you a forced perspective trick. And everybody talks about forced perspective like Main Street USA, right? Like all of the buildings scale in a way which makes Sleeping Beauty Castle feel taller and further away from us. But that's kind of 101 forced perspective. There's so many different ways Imagineering designs their theme parks to mess with your mind, and most importantly, your depth perception. So as we go through another great keyhole, everybody knows about the spaceport at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. This might be your favorite part of the park. You have the Falcon, you have all the black spires. It really is a theme park marvel of design. But as we stand here in the middle of the spaceport, one of the absolute best design details of the spaceport, you cannot even see. It's completely invisible to the human eye. So let's leave Batu and go to where you can actually see one of my favorite design details of this land and how Walt Disney Imagineering uses forced perspective to lure you back into here. So one of the things that makes this one of my all-time favorite design details of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because this building looks like something different from every different angle, meaning it serves a different purpose depending on the viewpoint that you see it. And right now, it looks like a towering structure that is a peak of the skyline of the Black Spire Trading Post. So as we discover this building from all around the rivers of America and inside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, you'll notice that its scale and its purpose seems to change. So right now we're observing it from the railing on the edges of the rivers of America. And if we zoom in, pretty far zoom in, you can see that it looks like a tower of the skyline of the Black Spire Trading Post. Almost makes you feel like that there's probably some sort of flight control group in there that's overseeing the spaceport and all of the different vehicles that are coming in and out of Batu for whatever missions and different business they may have on the edge of the galaxy. But from here, on the edge of the rivers of America, it looks extremely tall, extremely big. And that's going to change a lot today. So just moving a little bit further down the trail, you can see that there's a tree now covering that building. And I believe that's because we can see the ship that's on top of Docking Bay 7. Well, if you could see the ship and the structure at the exact same time, it would ruin the perspective of just how big that satellite tower is. But when we see the ship aligned with that top spire, it makes the ship and the spire feel very long, very tall. All of these viewpoints are designed just to make everything feel to a certain scale. And that scale changes based on where your viewpoint is. So if you're curious, how did one of my favorite design elements of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge come to me on the edges of the rivers of America? And it's quite simple. It was one of the first pieces of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge that we could see. And I would come here every week, ride the Disneyland Railroad, ride the Mark Twain, peering beyond the berm, trying to get a look into what was getting ready to come into all of our Disney lives. And I saw this tower, and it made me wonder what it was going to be like to live my own Star Wars adventure inside of a really materialized spaceport. However, on opening day, when I got in to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, I could no longer find the beacon. I could no longer find the building that had been promising me all this adventure. It was completely hidden and had disappeared. That intrigued my designer brain. Now you can see where off the front of the boat, you can see the building for just a little bit, and this might be the tallest that it ever looks, but it is literally just there for a moment to let us know that there is a spaceport back in Batu, that it's not just rocks, but they carefully didn't show too much of it as to not ruin the beautiful sightlines of the rivers of America. And then when we come around the closest to it, you can see every tree is planted in a way where there is no way to look over and see our beacon for this spaceport anymore. And there is also this little cutout in the middle of Tom Sawyer's Island where you can see it for just a second, but unfortunately I stopped to say hi to a citizen of Disneyland and I lost that second. So it is literally just there for one glimpse, but don't think it's an accident that it exists in that cutout in the middle of the island. And you can see just that outer band from this direction, but once again, the scale looks so much different out of the front of the boat the first time that we see it. So now that we're wandering into Batu, let's look at this structure from inside the land that it's designed for. This is the part that I kind of enjoy the most about it. So as we come around the corner, you can see it protruding off the edge of the rockwork there. And it still looks tall, but not as tall as it looked when we were over on the edge of the rivers of America. This is kind of the medium shot of it. But you'll notice something. See how the tree line the foliage all across the bottom of the building? It's doing something really important because the scale is getting ready to change drastically on this building. All right, I'm moving over to the edge of the X-Wing fighter, and you'll see now that this is kind of my last shot from over here. And with the way that it's cut out around that tree line, it's a bit of a keyhole that's pushing that pretty far off into the distance. But it still has a little bit of the medium scale to it. You can see everything around it is framing and pushing into that vantage point, letting us know that there is a spaceport on the other side of this brush. So one of the magic tricks that I believe exists with this building is the closer you get to it, the smaller it appears, which shows a very intelligent use of forced perspective. And that when we were very, very far away from it, it felt tall, like the top of the spaceport. But as we're getting close to it, it's actually shrinking in scale because we can see with our eyes how big it's not. But there's a couple of little design techniques that they use to make that narrative change. So what once was a skyscraper is now going to feel like an outpost checkpoint, which is pretty rad if you think about it. So we've now traveled over to the edge of where the resistance area stops and the market begins. So sort of going from Act 1 into Act 2. And this is as close as we're ever going to be able to get to the building. Now it looks incredibly short and squatty. And they did something I think that is so extremely clever to make it fit into this close scale, but something that we can't see when we're all the way on the other side of the rivers of America. And look at that, just coming this close, it's already disappeared. Cannot see it, and we won't be able to see it for quite a while. So what I enjoy about it when we stand over there on the trail is if you notice, there's guardrails all around the bottom of this checkpoint. I'm going to call this the checkpoint version because it looks like literally you'd see a couple of guards up there overlooking the stores, this edge of Batu, maybe wondering if there's any ruffians coming in to overtake all of the villagers, which I'm sure pay some sort of tax to keep all of their stores open and safe because we're in the outer edge of the galaxy if we're going to go with the storyline. But if you notice, the guardrails around it make it feel like one or two of us could walk inside of this building, or maybe it's just some sort of motor or satellite gear for monitoring folks coming in and out of the spaceport, which is right around the bend. But think about how small it looks with that handrail around it. And now when I show you the clip over on the edge of the rivers of America, look at how tall it is. That is a masterful forced perspective because as you're going to see real soon, the building doesn't even actually exist inside of the land that it's created for. If we fully break it down, we have this little structural beam underneath it that makes it elongate and stand out. We see that there's a little bit of a catwalk, but it feels like with that satellite dish next to the antennas that you and I could stand there, a stormtrooper could stand there and easily guard the spaceport and oversee what's going on. That is so drastically different than how it looks over on the edge of the rivers of America. And you can see how this little piece sort of protrudes out from the base with a little bit of surveillance or navigational technology out there on that beam. But right there would be as far as anybody who's actually working on behalf of this little building would stand. And this is really zoomed in. If we go back to full length, you can see how it's just another cap, sort of matching the same size as these columns on the far edge of the shop. So as you probably know, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is divided into 3 different areas. There's the Resistance area, there's the First Order area, but here in the middle, we have the trading area. So it's kind of like, these are the villagers, good guys, bad guys, flank them on each side. And that's kind of where the conflict and the struggle is, right? So I read that building as it being a part of the center part of Batu. It's a part of the spaceport, and that's kind of the storyline. Oh, look at this guy. And that acts as the storyline, why the Millennium Falcon's here, why Hondo is hiring us to do a mission on the behalf of the Falcon, and why Doc Ondor is trading and Oga is the baddie, or sort of the, if you will, Tony Soprano of Batu. So all of those pieces of the story fit into this center part of the land. And I feel like that tower is to signify, if you look off into the distance, you see the rock work, but you also see that tower to let us know that there's a spaceport here. Well, now that we're in the spaceport, where's the tower? So if we stand on the far side of the shop, obviously we can't see it from the big dome building that Ronto Roasters is inside of, AKA the world's most elaborate hot dog stand. And now as we come up the stairs, you can see that there is no indication of that building, because it would conflict with the scale of not only this cargo ship that has all the different cargo containers celebrating the dates, the years of the original trilogy, but this cargo ship needs to be at scale with the tower that we go through when we ride Millennium Falcon's Smuggler Run. Also the scale of the edge of the wall here. So all 3 of these pieces are working in unison for a specific scale. What our building is nowhere to be seen. And now that we're in the spaceport proper, which I believe it's sort of a calling card to let us know all this exists, obviously it is nowhere to be seen yet once again. So the building letting us know that there's a spaceport in town cannot be seen when you're actually in the spaceport. And right here is really our own little glance to see it. But now it's playing a different scale and a different purpose. And once again, the closer you get, the more that it disappears. And here on the back ramp, which is one of my favorite parts of the park, this ADA ramp that's put in for differently abled folks and strollers, it just doesn't exist once again. So if you've watched my Disneyland Keyholes video, you understand how I broke down how Disney is constantly using 3 layers of storytelling. And here, if we ignore the canvas drapes that are to create shade, we can see that the building, the little bit of it that we see, it once again looks sort of a middle size. Not quite as small as if we were standing up on top of it, but not as grandiose from the edges of the Rivers of America. This time around, it looks sort of a middle tier, almost to make us feel like if we're coming up on this back pathway on the edge of the Falcon, that there's just more Batu beyond the ridge. Therefore, telling us subconsciously that there's more adventure around the corner. Go out and explore because there's more to find. And this will be the last time that we'll see it inside of Batu. So there you go, friends. Another one of my designer deep dives showing you just how truly deep into the park's design that I am, that one of my favorite details of Batu, you can't even really see inside of Batu. Let me know below. Have you ever seen this building? Have you ever wondered, like I did on opening day, where is it? Where did it go? I absolutely love this structure, and I love how it's hidden in there and the dual purposes that it serves. Friends, until the next time I see you standing on the edge of Batu, I'll see you back here with more Disneyland Designer Deep Dives. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you'd like to learn about one of my favorite design tricks, the Disneyland keyhole, watch this video right here where I break down how Disney Imagineering uses keyholes to make everything in the park give you a certain perspective of where the adventure lies beyond the horizon and how they make the park feel bigger and more adventurous. It's waiting for you right here.